Well, good morning, everybody. This is our first morning podcast. It's episode 4 of The Pain of Winning with myself and our Supreme Court Justice, Kate King. So thanks for being here today. This is lovely to see you. It feels so professional and like very out of the ordinary of how you and I usually interact. So I think we should just get started with maybe like a kind of a few seconds of like who you are, what you do, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently a member of the Arizona Supreme Court. I was appointed to the position in 2021, and I have been, so I actually just had my 4-year anniversary on the court. But before that, I was a practicing attorney. And I actually, my background was, and we can talk about this in a little bit more detail, but my background was I had spent most of my career in private law practice as an attorney in private practice with 2 different law firms in Arizona. But I also spent a good chunk of my career in public service positions, as well as serving on some boards, some state boards as well. And we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. I know you wanted to keep this somewhat short, but I grew up. I'm a native of Arizona. I was born and raised actually about very close to downtown Phoenix. So this is my home. I spent a lot of my childhood in Tucson because my grandparents and other relatives lived there. And then I also spent a good chunk of my childhood traveling in northern Arizona and spending time up there. We had a cabin up in northern Arizona. So this is really my passion is Arizona. It's my home, and it's where I knew I was meant to stay here.
So the only time you haven't been here is obviously you went to the university, you went to Duke. So is that the only time you didn't live here then?
Yeah, so during my 4 years of Duke, yes, I spent in North Carolina. I spent a summer doing an internship and then working as a hostess at a restaurant for a little bit of money because the internship was unpaid in New York City. So I spent about 3 months there, actually right before September 11th. I left at the end of August 2001.
Oh, wow.
And then I also spent a semester of law school in Washington, D.C., and I did an internship on the Senate Judiciary Committee. So I was working in the United States Senate for 4 to 5, I think it was 4.5, 5 months.
Okay. So I think I want to know, and I think everybody would want to know, a position, of where you are currently, like how does it all lead up to this, right? So like going all the way back, being born and raised in Arizona, what was childhood like? What did your parents do? At what point did you start feeling like you knew what you wanted to be when you grew up? Was it what you're doing now? Did you want to be an astronaut? How did this all start, I guess? Baby Kate.
Well, I grew up in a household where my dad was a practicing lawyer, actually.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the law and government was a part of my household discussions.
And what kind of attorney?
So my dad was actually a transactional lawyer. So he represented businesses of all sizes, small and large, when they were acquiring another company or maybe being bought. But he represented businesses in corporate and securities matters. So he was not a litigator. I chose a different path. I went into litigation.
Yeah.
The practice of law is quite varied in the sense there are so many different things you can do with a law degree, but I chose the litigation path, and my dad was a transactional lawyer. But he was always very, very interested. In fact, he and my mom met in New York City, and he at the time he was working in a private law firm, but he actually always had an interest in going into government. And so he thought about for a while, and in fact interviewed, and I think maybe even got a job offer to work in Washington, D.C. with an executive agency there. But he came from not a lot of money growing up, and he had the opportunity to have the experience in private law firm life and make a little bit of money.
So if they met in New York, how did they get to Arizona?
So my mom is from Florida, and she hated the winters in New York. My dad was from New York, and my mom was from Florida, and they said they wanted to go to one of the Sun Belt states. So they looked in different states throughout the southern part of the United States, and they ended up here in Arizona. My mom was a speech pathologist, so she worked. She spent her career working in different hospitals close to downtown Phoenix, helping brain-injured patients, stroke patients, and people who had had head trauma, like motorcycle accidents, helping them learn how to swallow again. Actually, that was one of her areas of expertise, was helping patients recover from that kind of trauma. So that was my household growing up. I have 2 older brothers, and but we did, because of my dad, we spent a lot of time talking about, just at the kitchen table, just talking about
like policy,
government, policies about, there's business regulations, and is this for the
like how, like, when can you remember that type of conversation? Like, how old do you think you were? That, I mean, it may have happened earlier, but like, when do you feel like you finally were like, I remember dinner around the table every Sunday night, and there's like certain conversations I can always remember, especially around politics. You can just remember as a little kid, like, certain conversations stick with you and you just don't forget. Like, at what age do you think, like, little Kate was like talking policy around the kitchen table?
Well, I remember conversations in elementary school.
Okay.
I think even at an age, we're just talking about things like taxes, and my parents explaining to me, we pay taxes, and here's where our tax dollars go. Here are the projects that they go to, and is this a worthwhile project, or is it something that you think maybe the tax dollars could be shifted in another direction? And so we were having those.
Now, have you forwarded this into your own? Like, do you do this with your own children, or no?
We talk a lot about the 3 branches of government, and I know that sounds strange, but we actually talk a lot about, this is how the process works for policy making.
And I think
in
it's
the
important,
United States.
especially because of where you are in your career. I think it's also important for them to understand, like, what does that mean? What are the responsibilities around that? Like, what does mommy do? It's very different than when I go to work in the morning. So all right, so interesting. So you guys do talk about it around the table.
Yeah, and in fact, my daughter and her friend had they were out of school during a court oral argument in June, and my sitter brought them to sit through the court oral argument, just to have the opportunity to see what it's like. What is a courtroom like? So I try to take advantage of those educational opportunities, because I think civics education, that was near and dear to the heart of Sandra Day O'Connor. In fact, she has quite a legacy on the U.S. Supreme Court, but her passion was civics, and she helped develop this iCivics program that is has spread throughout the country to teach children about civics education. And so one of my favorite things to do, I've done this with a few different school groups, is a field trip to the Capitol, where they can visit the legislature, see what the legislative branch does, go to the executive office, see what the role of the governor is, and the executive agencies, and then come to the court and see how we are different from those.
So at what age, what is the earliest moment you can remember thinking, I want to go to law school and I want to be some type of attorney?
I was very interested at a young age about going to law school. But
now, do you think was that something like you adored your dad, you wanted to be just like your dad, or you were like, wow, these conversations at dinner was it a combination of both?
I would say it's sort of the big picture, because as a child, yes, those conversations in our household about government and the role of government in our lives, and the rule of law. But also, he would take me to his law firm when I was a child, and I was just enamored by, I'd see his desk with all these papers on them, and I'd look at them and think, what is he doing? This is what he does all day, and he really helps solve problems. He's a problem solver, and it just seemed like such an important job. One of the interesting things that he did do, And it's so interesting. I think I reflect on this, and I think it was very purposeful. Although he didn't say he was doing this on purpose, is he would go around and introduce me to other lawyers in his law firm, and in particular, some of the women lawyers that he worked with. Now, to go back a generation, so he would tell me that in his law school class, there was one woman in his law school class, but she never graduated. She didn't graduate with the class. I don't know the background there, but he would make that point, and I think in a way maybe it was to motivate me. And I mean the statistics have changed dramatically. Now half, if not more than half, of law school graduates are women in the field, and you think about the changes that have been made. But I think he was motivating me to think about a career in the law at some point. And he loved introducing me to the other lawyers that he worked with.
That's awesome.
So I definitely had an interest and a desire in the law from a very young age, but I was not confident for sure. I actually didn't make the decision to actually apply to law school until I was in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So take us to meeting your husband, Bill King, who's also a practicing attorney. And I honestly don't know. I was like trying to think about it on the way here. I'm like, have they known each other since high school? And I'm like, I want to say yes. Am I making that up?
You are correct.
Okay.
Yes. I always tell my kids too, you want to be kind and respectful to other people because that is what we should be doing as human beings. We are, we should be helping other people, being kind and respectful. But yeah, my husband and I met each other in high school. And so the point is you never know also where you're going to come back around years later and reconnect with somebody.
And did you date? You just were friendly?
We were just friends with each other, and we were kind of in a similar social group for a period of time. But he was a senior when I was a sophomore in high school when we met. And so he graduated in 1997, and he went off to the Midwest for college and law school, and then came back to Arizona. And so we actually, I think it was about 11 years later, we reconnected after all of that time.
And not at the same firm?
Correct, not at the same law firm.
Okay, so you were at different law firms and reconnected.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And this was the first time you guys were like, okay, let's go on a date.
Yeah. So we were just kind of he was really kind of an old friend of mine, and so we just reconnected as friends, and then eventually started dating.
And how long was that process until you got married, from like reconnecting to getting married?
I think it was 2 years.
Okay.
Roughly.
Yeah, because you guys already knew each other.
Right.
I mean, you had the foundation.
Right. That was nice, an added bonus in the sense that I knew some of his family members, and there was already a bit of a background.
And when you were in private, what kind of law did you focus on compared to what Bill focused on?
Yeah, we were both in the civil litigation space, but as in the practice of medicine and other fields, there's even more niche practices within civil litigation. So I focused on labor and employment law, advice and counseling, and litigation, as well as some business-related litigation. My husband, Bill, he did some personal injury work, and as well as some other types of litigation in the commercial and securities litigation context, such as like bank fraud claims and other kinds of. He was more of a generalist in the sense like he handled all sorts of different types of civil litigation.
So if you have, I'm just like picturing this, two attorneys, they get married, they're both young, they're grinding it out. You have debt, you have all kinds of things going on, and you're like, we should have a family. Like, how does this even like happen? I mean, logically, like when we chose to have a family, it was like thinking through like who would do pickup and who would do drop off, and where would we do pickup and drop off? Like, where would this baby go to anything? And like, you're just, I mean, there's so much planning involved, especially when you're both attorneys. Like, you don't have 9 to 5s. You don't have, right? So, and it depends, like if you're a trial attorney, right? Like there's so many, walk us, I mean, how do you do that? That's insane. And then you did it twice. So,
Well, a couple of things come to mind. One is it actually is, and I think Bill would say this too, beneficial, the fact that we were both lawyers with our young kids, in the sense that if he had an emergency pop up and he had to handle something, I completely understood, and so I would jump in. Or if I was getting a call from the school in the middle of a deposition, you have a sick kid, I would reach out to him and he could jump on board to go pick up, our sick child. So it is beneficial that we both understand the dynamics of the practice of law and how sometimes you just can't help it. You have a client emergency, you have to jump into it, and that's just part of the job. The other part of it too, though, is living close to family, because I know they use that phrase, it takes a village, and in my experience, it really does, because my mother-in-law, my mom have been pivotal in helping us through, those last-minute emergencies. Our kids were in daycare for their very young years, and then preschool, and they've been in school, and we have a lot of after-school help. We have after-school sitters who have helped over the years to pick up our kids and get them to volleyball practice and baseball practice and those things. But, when an emergency comes up and nobody else is around to help, it's our family, and in particular, my mother-in-law and my mom.
Did you maternity? Did you get maternity with both? Is that something in your practice that happens?
Yes. So my son was born in 2013, and I had 12 weeks of maternity leave, and then returned. And my daughter was born in 2014, so I took maternity leave, 12 weeks of maternity leave again, and actually at that time that was at the end of 2014, and that's when I actually ended up transitioning into another job, because I got a job offer to go into state government.
Did you at any point with either child, were there moments where you were like, I don't want to go back, or I have anxiety of putting them in a daycare, or I mean, I think it's something that as businesswomen we don't talk about often, and I think it's really easy to just say, it's to your point of being kind, right? I think a lot of the times people just say, oh, well, she's a stay-at-home, or well, oh, she's an executive and she's never around, and it's almost like on both sides you can't win. You realize the moms that aren't around because they're running a company, so maybe dad has pick up and drop off, and you're not kind, or you're not kind because the mom has a stay-at-home, job, and you think it's very interesting societal wise. I just feel like it's so hard. There's no winning, right? And so I find it even in myself. There's moments of, and I'm like, wow, my mom had 4. And I just have 1. And I'm a head case. There's weeks I'm like, oh my gosh, I killed it at work. Oh, this is awesome. Now we can go on that summer vacation. And there's weeks at work I'm like, I just want to build blocks, with him. So it's constantly working on that balance. What has that been like? Well, and your kids are at such a fun age. I mean, it just keeps getting better and better and better. But how do you do that?
It is very challenging. I will admit, there are days, to your point, where I feel like, okay, I've got this. I am, doing a good job raising my children, and I'm doing the professional thing, and it's all good. And then there are days where I think I am juggling way too many balls right now, and I feel like any little thing is going to knock me. On a Monday morning? No. It's going to knock.
Why did I say yes to this?
No, but it's the exam. No, I love this. I am delighted to do this. But the thing of, you wake up one morning and you have a sick kid and you've got to rush to the doctor, and all of a sudden it's just you just have to be able to pivot pretty quickly. I do think I will say, to your point earlier, I did when I was pregnant. I thought about, should I stay home with my kids and be full time, at home mom, and I thought about that long and hard, but I ultimately decided my profession and my job is part of who I am, and I actually get a lot of satisfaction out of it. And my mindset was, well, I'm just going to take it truly, really, a day at a time. And I will take it day by day. And if I go back to work and I am feeling like it's just too much, then I can choose to be at home full time with my kids, because my husband would have supported me either way.
Do you think that's even though, like, as a woman in law, like, for me, if I decided to stay at home and come back in, say, 5 years, what I do for a living in commercial real estate, right? Everybody moves on. The business, the clients, I would have to basically start all over, right? Like, hey, I'm back in. That would take some ramp up. Do you see that in law? Do you see women going and being at home for 5-10 years and being able to jump back in? Like, what does that look like?
Yes, it does happen.
Okay.
It does. But to your point, there is a ramp up, because in those 5 intervening years, laws change.
A lot changes, yeah.
There's new cases that have come out that have clarified aspects of the law that you need to be aware of. When a client calls you and has a question, you need to be aware of that, U.S. Supreme Court decision from last year to answer those questions. So yes, it does take time, and you have to re-engage with your clients. If you had clients before, you have to redevelop new connections and market yourself. So there is a ramp-up stage. But yes, I know many women who have done that, and some of my dear friends who have done that.
Hard. Yeah. I'm sure it's very hard. Mm-hmm. But it's doable.
Yes.
Like, you can do it. It's going to take time.
Yeah. But it's like any profession. You have to find the right job that's going to work for you and your current personal home life. Because I'm fortunate. I have 2 healthy kids. I don't have a child with a disability. I don't have a lot of struggles that other people have, or challenges that other people have, that, I'm very blessed with that right now. So what we're doing right now is working, but, life throws curveballs at you. And so you just can't take any moment for granted.
All right. So take us through how and when you decide that you actually want to go more onto the policy, Arizona Supreme Court, like what that looked like for you.
So when I was in law school, I was unaware of this program, but Senator Kyle he was on the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, and he had 2 interns, one from ASU Law and one from U of A Law. So every semester or summer, I think summer too, but I was there during a semester, you could go do work in the Senate Judiciary Committee office. He was chairman, I believe, of the U.S. Senate Committee on Technology and Homeland Security. And so I decided to apply for it. I thought, what an amazing opportunity to go live in Washington, D.C. for roughly about 5 months and be able to work on the Hill and just take in that experience. At the time, I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do in the legal field. I was exploring the idea of going and working in government, or going into private practice, which is what my dad did. So I had a fantastic experience. I mean, just sitting there and doing, at the time it was, September 11th was just a few years after September 11th. So the Homeland Security stuff was really important and a topic of a lot of discussion in Washington, D.C. And so I was able to do some research on, just different issues relating to terrorism and other aspects of what was going on in the policy world at that time. So that was a really great experience. I returned to finish out my law school career in Tucson at U of A. And as I mentioned earlier, I went into private law practice because I had a fantastic job opportunity. And it was also, as I mentioned earlier, the student loan situation, because that was top of mind to me as well, being able to pay off my student loans. So I went to a law firm where I practiced, as I mentioned, employment and labor law and some business litigation as well. And while I was there, I got a phone call. Actually, I was on maternity leave with my second child, and I got an invitation to apply for to work in the governor's office.
So how does that happen? Like, how does your name get, I'm like, there's so many attorneys, right? Like, how does that happen?
So a lawyer at my old law firm, Mike Liberti, who's now a federal district court judge, he was going to transition over to the governor's office once Governor Ducey was elected as general counsel. And so we worked at the same law firm, and I think he was in the position of needing, because there were going to be two lawyers in the office. He was be general counsel, and he needed a deputy general counsel. So I was one of, I think, several people he reached out to see if there would be interest in.
And were you like,
that.
absolutely, yes? Were you hesitant on it? I mean, you're on maternity. You're like, what is happening?
Well, right. I was on maternity leave, and frankly, I really liked my job at the law firm that I was at. I felt like I was developing there as a lawyer. I was getting great experience. The people I worked with were great people. They were supportive. They were trying to help me develop professionally, introduce me to clients. I was starting to develop my own clients. And so I just felt like my career there was actually in a good spot. But upon a lot of reflection and discussion with my husband, we decided that this is really kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of things in life are timing. And if you say no or pass something up, it may never come around again, that opportunity again. And so with a lot of discussion with my husband, I thought, okay, this is a really nice time actually to take a break from the billable hour world. So in the private law practice, you're billing by the hour. Your time truly is your value.
Everything. Yes.
And so I thought this is a really neat opportunity to go into, to be an in-house counsel role, and would allow me just really a new opportunity to see what is the executive branch of government like. So I had worked.
So when this all happens, was he already elected? Or because you have to, it's always blows my mind, like in elections and stuff, because you have to think both parties, right, are like, if we win, this is what the team looks like, and this is start day one. If we win, so it's like, does everyone just kind of put everything on hold? You're like, I'm not resigning, but like, if he wins, I'm going. Like, what? And everyone's like, okay with it? Like, how does that?
I think every gubernatorial administration handles it a little bit differently. For me, I was not part of that original team, who was on board. I was asked to interview for a position, so I was sort of doing my own thing.
Okay.
But there were a lot of new people who were brought on board with this new governor's administration. There were some holdovers who stayed along as well. Like I'm thinking of one person in particular who worked in Governor Brewer's office, and she stayed on to work in Governor Ducey's office. But every gubernatorial administration handles it a little bit differently. But yes, I mean, if you're elected, you win that election in November, you're starting in January. So you have a short window of time to really get all of your people in place, and it is quick.
So had you worked... You hadn't worked with Ducey prior, though.
I had never met him.
You haven't?
No. And so the first time I met him was when I was working in my office, and he came in and introduced himself. And so, yes, I did not know him. I knew just a couple of people who were working in Governor Ducey's office at the time. But it was so new to me. I mean, this whole new role of being
And you're
deputy
not billing
general
it, yeah.
counsel. I'm not billing hours,
yeah.
and I don't really know many of these people. I mean, like I said, I think I knew two of the people who were working in the office. But it's funny. It was a whole new world. Mike Liberty and I laughed for years because even the conference room had this very unusual lighting system. I mean, we were struggling just to turn on the lights in the conference room. It was all so brand new.
Yeah.
So you have to learn quickly. And fortunately, there were people who had worked in state government before, like within the executive agencies and the Attorney General's office, who were subject matter experts. So the executive branch of government, it's obviously the governor's office, but the governor, just like the president, appoints, but here in Arizona, nominates the directors of the different state agencies within the state. And so those are the directors, like the director of the Arizona Department of Health Services, the director of Juvenile Corrections, the director of the Department of Administration. So the governor's office and the governor is overseeing those executive agencies too. So there was just a lot of new things to learn about, but also a lot of people who were really helpful in explaining, okay, this is how things work in the corrections world.
So how long were you deputy then?
So I was deputy general counsel for about nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
Just under 3 years.
And then what happened?
Well, I was not looking to leave the office, but at the time, as you know, I had two young kids, and we were dealing, unfortunately, with some health issues with my dad at the time, who has since passed away, but he had dementia. And it was, I was offered an invitation to join a smaller woman-owned law firm and come on board as a partner. And I didn't want to bill the 2,000-hour, have a 2,000-hour billable requirement, because I knew that would be a little bit too much given kind of all of my personal obligations, but I didn't want to bill half-time. So I talked with the partners at this firm, and I said, this could be something for me at this personal juncture of my life that could be a great opportunity for me to go back to private law practice and have a little bit more control over certain aspects of my career. The thing with state government is that, it's running, there are things that pop up 24 hours a day at state government. And so it was a lot of work. There was a lot of work to be done there. And I actually thought to myself, okay, if I can do something more like 1,500 billable hours a year, that would be a really nice, position me well to be able to do really interesting legal work for clients, but also be able to have a little bit more of a set schedule within, roughly within the normal business hours. So I ended up going back to private law practice at that small firm for about 4 years before I ended up applying to the bench.
Yeah.
Yes, that's when we met.
Were there any aha moments or like things you learned or hard learning lessons or, things, I don't know, like kind of give us a skinny on, like what that was like. That was, a whole new world, and in the type of world it's in, you're like, what's that like?
Yeah, you have to learn so much about the functions of state government and what are the different executive agencies do.
So are you like studying it? Are you like polishing off on it? Like
you have to do deep study of okay, what is the statute that deals with executive orders, and what are the constitutional requirements for the Voter Protection Act. You're having to, because for example, what would happen is you would have, so there's members of the governor's policy team who were monitoring bills that the legislature was working on. And so, they have all sorts of questions, but one may be, look, if this is challenged, if this is legally challenged, is there going to be a constitutional issue with this bill? And so I would have policy people come and ask questions to me about the maybe the constitutional issues that could be raised if there was some sort of legal challenge. If in fact this bill gets to the governor's office and the governor is deciding whether to sign it or veto it, are there any legal issues, constitutional issues?
I'm just assuming, but I'm assuming governor is not sitting there doing all the reading, interpretation of law. Like, that is not the background, that is not the purpose. So is there a heavy lean on that? Like, you and Mike, right? To look at you guys and go, what is the interpretation of it? Does that change how he feels about a certain, like, you're in charge of very big, right, things that could be on a ballot or could really make a difference or a bad difference in somebody's lives. Like, what, right? Like, he's leaning on you guys. Like, that's a lot of pressure for you to be like, this is how we're interpreting this.
Yeah. And some governors are lawyers. They come from a legal background and were practicing lawyers before they became governor. Governor Ducey was not a lawyer, but he was, in the business world for a long time and worked with a lot of lawyers. So he had a lot of experience with lawyers. So yes, I mean, there would be just questions that would pop up, and he would lean on his in-house legal team to provide some guidance on whatever the legal issue was that came up.
So then you go and you have the opportunity to be a partner. So you go and you do that for 4 years, and then what happens?
So let me back up a little bit about when I was working in the governor's office. One of the things, I mean, of course, I talked about a little bit just the legal analysis of various issues that come up. But one aspect of the job, and there were other things. I mean, there's executive clemencies that I was reviewing those, extraditions, things of varied issues that would come up that I was handling. But one very critical thing that governors here in Arizona do, and every state has kind of a different system for judges, but in Arizona we have what's called a merit selection system, where the 4 most populated counties in Arizona, so that's Maricopa, Pima, Pinal, and Coconino, as well as for the appellate court judges, so the trial court judges in those 4 counties, and then the appellate court judges in Arizona. The way you become a judge is you apply to this nominating commission. So there's trial court nominating commissions for each of the respective 4 counties, and then there's an appellate court commission. So you, if you want to be a judge, you apply to that commission. They vet you. There's a whole lengthy application, and then if they want to interview you, they will conduct an interview. It's in a public meeting, and then the commission sends a list of names to the governor, and then the governor has to appoint from that list of names. And this system then required the governor's office, and in particular Mike Liberty and I, to assist with the vetting once that list of names comes to the governor's office, assist with the vetting and interviews of those candidates, and walking the governor through that process, because ultimately the governor makes the appointment. So it was at that time when I was working there that I became very passionate about the merit selection system in Arizona, which, by the way, so the other 11 counties in Arizona are direct contested elections. So if you want to be a judge, you have to run a campaign, and you are directly elected. So it's a little bit of a different process for those more rural counties where everybody kind of knows each other. It's a little bit of a different system there. But so I became very passionate about, gosh, this merit selection system. It really does. It really leads to a really highly qualified judiciary in Arizona. And it was there that somebody said, gosh, you're so passionate about this merit selection system. Have you ever thought about becoming a judge one day? I think you you would make a great judge. And that planted a seed in my mind. I actually initially kind of laughed it off, but it planted a seed. And over the years, that seed started to grow and develop. And I started to think about it more and decided to, I think I do want to be a judge. But I didn't know whether it would be a trial court judge or an appellate court judge. So, but at that time, I truly spent years thinking about this and weighing it in my mind of, okay, I know I want to be a judge, but would I want to do trial court or appellate court? And ultimately, I decided that appellate court would be, so in Arizona, we have a court of appeals. At the trial court, if you wish to appeal, you get a decision that you wish to challenge, you appeal to the Arizona Court of Appeals. And then if you don't like the decision at the Court of Appeals, you can petition for review at the Arizona Supreme Court. So we have those. In general, there's a lot of nuance, but we have those three levels of trial courts or of courts in Arizona. We also have some municipal courts, and
it's insane.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need like a whole detective board.
Yes, it's quite a bit.
Yeah. So basically, just appeal everything, and we'll get all the way to the top at some point.
But my plan was to apply for the Court of Appeals because there were going to be some openings on the Arizona Court of Appeals. There were going to be some judges who were planning to retire. And so I got the application and started working on that when I was in private practice at the smaller firm. And it was at that time suddenly that there was a vacancy on the Arizona Supreme Court. And so a lot of reflection and discussion with my husband. Ultimately, I decided to apply and put my name in for that. Ultimately, it's the same commission. If I was going to apply for the Court of Appeals, it's the same commission. So what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
I'll put my name in. I'll get sort of having that interaction with the commissioners and if I don't get the position, guess what? In a few months, there's going to be a vacancy on the Court of Appeals. And then at least I've introduced myself to this commission.
Yes.
So I ended up applying, and then I was appointed and began serving in August of 2021.
So what are they, like, during that process, like, what are they looking for? Is it, are they asking you specific questions of how you would handle things? Are you, like, how deep is this interview process? It's not like what we're doing today. It's got to, be fact-checking things and your record of how you voted on the, right? Like,
so the application that I submitted, I should have pulled this up, but it's something you attach writing samples, so I think it was roughly around 50 pages. But you have to include things like references, people you were opposing counsel with. So if I litigated against lawyers, they would contact those lawyers to find out about your legal abilities, your general reputation, your demeanor.
I think that's smart.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. When you're in a stressful situation, how are you going to treat people as
Yeah.
a judge? Judicial demeanor is really important. So there's a lot of that they do a deep dive into.
Like, are you taking
legal
personality
credentials.
tests?
No, not personality tests.
Because the only reason I'm asking that is because I mean, obviously you're the only one I've interacted with from the Arizona Supreme Court, but like you nailed it, like demeanor. Like, I feel like your demeanor since I've known you has always just been like this. Like, I feel like you're just in everything you say, like you're very like poised and fair and calm and collect, and so it's, you think that, I mean, to your point, that would make sense. Those are things you're looking for, right?
And the commission is actually majority non-lawyers. So it's a 15-person commission, 10 non-lawyers, public members, and then 5 lawyers. So, yeah, I think a lot of the commission members, when they interview you, they're thinking in the back of their minds. I mean, obviously you have to have the legal credentials and experience and reputation and professional abilities. But, I think in many instances they're looking at it. If this were a judge who was reviewing my case, my property dispute, my divorce proceeding, would I feel comfort in knowing that they were going to fairly and impartially discharge their duties in this role? And so the commission does a really stellar job of vetting these candidates. And it really is it does produce a very highly qualified judiciary in Arizona.
So leading into, like, what is your role and job, like, as Arizona Supreme Court Justice?
There are actually a lot of, what's the most high profile is that we review cases. We are a court of,
Or it has to go all the way up, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you have to appeal it, and you guys are like the third, right, and final.
yes. So with the exception if there's federal issues, then they can appeal. They can take an appeal from our court, from the Arizona Supreme Court, to the U.S. Supreme Court. But generally, for all state law matters, the end is with the Arizona Supreme Court. So we are the final word on
How
on
many
a lot of
judges?
those. There's 7 of us.
7.
Yes.
And there's always been 7?
There has not always been 7.
Okay.
So at statehood, in 1912, at our state's formation, we had 3 justices on the Arizona Supreme Court. And at some point, I believe it was in the 40s. I mean, if you think about Arizona's growth, we just have grown tremendously.
Baby state. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the 40s, I think it was the 40s, it changed to a 5-member court. And then I can't remember if it was 2015 or 2016, the court became a 7-member court.
And are most states 7-member? Like, what is?
It's really interesting. There's a range. I actually should look at the data, but they're either 5, 7, or 9. Some
Okay.
states are 9. So 7 is kind of right in the middle there, where a lot of other states with comparably sized populations have 7-member courts.
Are you loving it?
I do. It is such a fantastic job.
Do you think a lot of that's because, to your point, you guys are overseeing so many different, right? Like when you were in private, you had more of a niche. Like now you're seeing, just like you said, taxes, criminal, right? Like you're touching everything. It's more well-rounded. Your days are not going to be similar because you're doing something different.
Every day is different, and you have to. Now, interestingly, by the time the case gets to us, we accept review on a very limited number of issues. Sometimes it's just one legal issue. Sometimes typically it's either 1 or 2 legal issues that we are deciding. And by the time it gets to us, the focus is so narrowed, as opposed to the trial court judge.
It's gone through.
It has. And so we have the benefit of I have 2 law clerks who are recent law school grads, and then I have a judicial assistant. We also have a staff attorney's office at the court lawyers who came from different areas of their own legal practice and have become subject matter experts. For example, we have a staff attorney who's a subject matter expert in capital cases to help us review those cases where there's a potential death sentence. And so we have people who help us, because that's the thing about becoming a judge, and it's the same thing with the trial court judges. We all came from our own areas of practice. If you had a criminal area of practice, and sometimes if you get appointed to the court, sometimes you may be assigned to a family court rotation. So you're not doing criminal work anymore. You're a family court judge. And so every judge comes from his or her own background. And so we really are lucky. We have a fantastic judicial education center in Arizona that does new judge orientation to train new judges on what they can expect as a judge. And here are some common things that come up, and here are some resources that you can look at if there's a question about spousal maintenance, for example. Here's the resources that you can look at. So we have those kinds of trainings available.
So are you going to do this till you're 70 if you keep getting elected?
So I went through a retention election last
Yes,
year
you
in
did.
2024,
Yes.
and I was retained by the
Yes.
voters. So I currently now have a 6-year.
Oh, I didn't know
Term.
that.
Mhm.
Really?
So I guess, what does that put me at? 2030 will be on the ballot
Yeah.
again in 2030. So I really enjoy this job, and I continue to hope to continue to serve in this role. But yes, I will be on. These are terms, so I have a very
Okay.
specific term.
Okay. And then does it go 6 years again?
Correct.
Okay.
So the way it works is you're appointed and then you're on the ballot. So because I was appointed in 2021, it's the next general election after 2 years of service, which is my date fell in the November of 2024 election. And then it's every 6 years thereafter. Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks
so good
for
to
having
see you.
me.
One good way to start a Monday morning.
Yes. It was a
It was
treat.
awesome.
Yes.
It was great.
Well, I think that wraps up episode 5. Yeah. Did I say
No,
4 in the
you
beginning?
did.
I did. Episode 5 of The Pain of Winning.